Hi, my name is Mira Patassin. I'm an author and I'm an activist, and GoFundMe is my go-to platform for fundraising. The first GoFundMe I did was to raise money for a chapbook or a collection of poetry and essays and short stories. So we started a GoFundMe and our goal was 7,000. What I've learned is so special about GoFundMe is that it's a whole collection of people offering anything from like $4 to $400. And each time you get a ping that someone donated, even if it is just $4, it's so exciting. So if you have a goal and you get there, you can keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. We did go past our goal. It was amazing.
GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 200 million people. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com.
A warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. Unfortunately, it's only 2 parts today. Typically this time of year when we have an off day in the NCAA tournament, we have the CBI, something like that. We didn't get a CBI this season, so we're just going to have a 2-part conversation here today. We're going to be in segment number 1, recapping all that we got in college basketball on Sunday. The Sweet 16, it is now set. And in segment number 2, going to be talking with one of my friends, Paul Fristchner. He does great work over at the Rebound Rundown Podcast, Field of 68, Big East Digital Network. He's based out there in Cincinnati. We're going to get his thoughts on what we all saw in the first week of the NCAA tournament. A little bit about the offseason as well. I'm not going to do too much offseason chatter these next few weeks. On slower days, I probably will be doing much more, like Jerry McNamara getting hired by Syracuse on Sunday. That's a big deal. I'll have much more thoughts about that during the offseason. I do want the games to still be able to get sparkle and shine, even though we are going to be seeing a trillion guys entering into the transfer portal over the next week. We're going to be seeing a lot of coaching hires, what have you, and I'll probably ask Paul about 1 or 2 of them. I won't doubt it. I haven't done the interview quite yet. If I ask him about that Jerry McNamara hire, a few other things as well, but do want to take a look at what we're going to be getting in the Sweet 16 moving forward and see the trends that we've got here in segment number 1. Then that chat will be with Paul in segment number 2. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have 1 or 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, that's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get on any Twitter/X questions today. The Sweet 16, it is set. It is oh so glorious. So let's take a look back at everything that we saw in college basketball on Sunday, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
In the early game, Purdue got a little bit of a sweat, but they did find a way to be able to persevere, get the job done. They win by a count of 79-69 over Miami, and for Miami, just 5 of 19 from 3 points. Purdue, they go 8 of 14 from the outside and 21 out of 22 at the free throw line. For Purdue, they do lose the rebound battle 33-25 as you had Sheldon Henderson supply 18 points, 8 rebounds, but they were able to do a solid job forcing 12 turnovers, and Trey Kaufman-Renn 21 points. You had Fletcher Loyer go off for 24. Now, CJ Cox a little bit banged up. Want to be checking in on him, but John Kerry Harris off the bench, he was able to give the team 5 solid points in his absence. And then you did see another of the top seeds be able to get the job done in Iowa State. They were very much in a dogfight in the first 20 minutes against Kentucky. They were able to take a 31-30 lead going into the half, and then they blew them on the second half, 82-63. The final, Iowa State, they started out 0 of 10 from 3. They finished 9 of 28 from the outside. Tamon Lipsky was the leader for the team as they were without Joshua Jefferson, 26 points, 10 assists for Iowa State. They win the turnover battle 20-7. That's where Kentucky went wrong, as Kentucky did go 9 of 25 from 3. Denzel Aberdeen or Dego away. They combined for 38 points. Not a lot outside of them, though, and they lost the rebound battle 31-30. So that was less than savory. If you laid the points with St. John's, you didn't quite get there. The outright win was had 67-65 the final, but you did have Kansas be able to claw their way back after they were down 8 at the half. For Kansas, Darren Peterson comes in for 21 points. For St. John's, 6 of 11 at the free throw line. Big reason why they did not cover this game, but won the turnover battle 16-8 for St. John's. 18 points apiece out of Zuby Ejiofor along with Bryce Hopkins, says this was a very interesting game throughout, to say the least, and it looked like St. John's might be able to get get that cover. They were up 4 points with a minute remaining, but just unable to close that one out as they were able to hit a winner at the buzzer with it being 65-65 in the closing seconds. For UConn, they were in a tussle throughout with UCLA, but they pull away late, 73-57 the final. This was a game that was 58-54 with about 6 minutes and change remaining. Then UCLA dies a terrible death with Mick Cronin, shock, surprise, getting a technical foul for UCLA, 5-13 from 3, 8-24 from UConn, and Alex Karaban, I would have never guessed this, career high, 27 points in this game. Terrace Reed, not quite the 27 rebounds they had against Furman, but 10 points, 13 rebounds for UConn. They go 19-21 at the free throw line, UCLA 14-21 at the charity stripe, and UCLA does win the turnover battle 16-11, but having back out there one of their main men as they were able to get Silas Demery back, that was able to help out quite a bit for this UConn team, as Demery has been such a big part of this team. He only had 2 points, but was able to give them 4 assists off the bench. For Arizona, they get the win 78-66. A lot of places had like 12.5 on Utah State, so determine upon your number as to whether or not you got the close, as this game stays under with Arizona going 27 of 39 at the free throw line, but Koepita a double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Montejuvis Carivas a double-double, 11 points, 14 rebounds. Braden Burries almost had a double-double with 16 points, 9 rebounds, and for Utah State, they did have Gary Clark off the bench, keeping them lively, 13 points, 6 rebounds, and to the credit of Utah State, they win the turnover battle 11-4, but just dump trucked on the glass, 54-26. So Arizona, they move on to the next round. The stunner of the day was Iowa, 73-72. Alvarez Fulgaris, he hits a 3 with about 4 seconds remaining as he came off the bench. 14 big points in this one. For Iowa, they had Tavion Banks be the top scorer in this game with 20 points. Bennett Sturz, 13 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, but the important stat, 0 turnovers. Florida loses their turnover battle 11-10. They played even up on the glass 27-27, which you wouldn't have expected. Thomas Haw, Alex Condon, a combined 40 points, and then Xavion Lee throws in there 17 as well. Rest of the team a combined 15 points. So Florida, they are the first 1 seed to get bounced from this tournament. Tennessee, they as a 6 seed get the job done against Virginia, 79-72. 12 of 35 for 3 points for Virginia, but Tennessee 8-19 from distance. Nate Abement was able to throw in their 16 points. Jacoby Gillespie, 6 assists, 21 points. And for Tennessee, they do lose the turnover battle 10-7. They win the rebound battle 39-35. And for Virginia, 6 of 11 at the free throw line, while Tennessee was able to go 8 of 19 at the charity stripe. That proved to be very, very big in this one. And then if you're looking at the last NCAA tournament game, do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Right now, Alabama's up 90-58 on Texas Tech. Alabama's going to be on to the next round. It all depends upon whether or not you get the over on 164.5, 165, as I'm doing this with 3 minutes remaining. Alabama's 19 of 40 from 3 points. LeBaron Phelan has only got 9 points in this game, but Latrell Wrightsell, with 3 minutes remaining, was at 24 points. Houston Mallett off the bench, buried 5 threes, and for Texas Tech, currently 4 of 22 from 3-point range, are getting outboarded 45-29. So just an absolute dump trucking there. And we do have to throw in there the NIT. There are some people like myself that do bet on the NIT, and St. Joe's, not average Joe's, 76-75. They find a way to get the job done against Cal, as Cal was up 41-33 at the half, and then for Cal, things went horribly wrong as they were up 14 points with 9 minutes and change remaining. And then from there, you had Jaden Glover be able to go off for 24 big points, 9 of 25 from the floor, so a volume shooter. But for St. Joe's, 9 of 26 from 3, 12 of 32 from Cal, but Cal, one of the better free throw shooting teams in all of college basketball, just 7 of 12 in this game, 7 of 13 from St. Joe's, but St. Joe's, even though they lose the turnover battle 9-8, they win the rebound battle 45-39, so they find a way to persevere, get the job done there. Wichita State, they shock Oklahoma State on the road. How about 96-70 in the final, as they outscored Oklahoma State 52-33 in the second half. Anthony Roy decided that he was going to come in off the bench for this game, just 7 points out of him. You had Christian Coleman along Kanye Cleary combined for 41 points, but Wichita State had Kenan Giles on their side. 28 points, goes 8 of 16 from 3. Wichita State 14 out of 26 from 3, just 6 of 20 on the flip side for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, they lose the turnover battle in this game, 11-7. You have Wichita State win that rebound battle 46-38, so they get the job done out there. So does New Mexico, 86-61. They take it to George Washington, who was only down 4 points at the half. He had a relatively good first half, and then in the second half, things just died a very horrible and painful death for them. As for George Washington, 11 of 35 from 3, 11 of 27 though for New Mexico. New Mexico wins the turnover battle 14-9, the rebound battle 45-36. They were able to just run and hide with this game in the second half. As stepping up for them, you had 19 big points in this game out of Jake Hall, so he was able to lift the team to victory. And for this George Washington team, losing the turnover battle was very, very rough for them. They also lost the offensive rebound battle, so not much went right there. A lot went right for Tulsa, though, 77-66 final this one, as you had Miles Barnstable be able to supply 16 points in this game for Tulsa. 10 of 28 from 3, pretty pedestrian for them, and 13 out of 22 at the free throw line by UNLV. 6 of 13 at the free throw line and 6 of 26 from 3 points, while losing the rebound battle 49-23, as in this game, Tyler Barron was able to give you 8 rebounds. Roma Dean was able to throw in there 11 rebounds. Tulsa, they get the job done. And Auburn, they're now 2-13 against the spread in their last 15 games. They get the win, but they don't cover double figures against Seattle. 91-85 the final for Auburn. 9 of 26 from 3, and Seattle has not been a very good offensive team. 16 out of 31 from the outside for them. You had Braden Maldonado step up with 25 points. Kevin Overton, 23 points. He led the way for Auburn. And Taj Bedford, who's been a disappointment this year, 9 points in this game, just 1 of 7 from the floor. And then the big shocker out there in the NIT, Illinois State, 78-75. They go on the road. They get the job done against Wake Forest. For Illinois State, only 10 of 33 from 3 points, but Johnny Kinslinger, he went 5 of 10 from 3, hit a big 3 with about 1.5 seconds remaining to be able to lift the team to victory. Ty Pence, he comes off the bench for 23 points. Trayvon Spillers did his best for Wake Forest, 24 points, 8 rebounds, but for Wake Forest, even though they win the rebound battle 35-31, they lose the turnover battle 11-9, and for Illinois State, 18 out of 21 at the free throw line, 14 out of 21 from Wake Forest. In a 3-point game, that is a big, big difference, to say the least. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in college basketball, overall for the season, it has been all about the unders and the underdogs. But if you look at the last 7 days in college basketball, boy, oh boy, have we been seeing the underdogs having a little bit of a rough go of it, 35-37 against the spread. Meanwhile, the overs, 40 overs to 32 unders over the last 7 days. That is a rate of 55.6%. And if you're looking at overall for the season numbers, the under hitting at about 50.7%, 2,899 unders, 2,819 overs, with the underdogs hitting at about 51.5%, 2,942 and 2,776. So that's where we're seeing trend-wise in college basketball, and that's what we all got on Sunday. Coming up next, let's have a great chat with one of our good friends out there in the great state of Ohio, Paul Fristchner, right here on Coast Coast with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast.
Hi, my name is Mira Patassin. I'm an author and I'm an activist, and GoFundMe is my go-to platform for fundraising. The first GoFundMe I did was to raise money for a chapbook, or a collection of poetry and essays and short stories. So we started a GoFundMe and our goal was 7,000. What I've learned is so special about GoFundMe is that it's a whole collection of people offering anything from like $4 to $400. And each time you get a ping that someone donated, even if it is just $4, it's so exciting. So if you have a goal and you get there, you can keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. We did go past our goal. It was amazing.
GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 200 million people. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com.
Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at CBBAnalytics.com. That is CBBAnalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. Back here, lovely Las Vegas, for Cusco Soups with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by this man, as we've got Paul Fristchner aboard. He does such a great job over at quite a few different places, whether that be the Big East Digital Network, whether that be his podcast, Rebound Rundown Podcast. I know that he's been doing some work over at the Field of 68, some play-by-play over at CBS Sports and so many other places. He is just dialed into college basketball and anything out there in the Cincinnati area as well. He does a great job on that front as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at his first and last name, Paul Fristchner, and that last name is spelled Fritschner. And Paul, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Greg. Best time of the year.
It is the best time of year, and we are doing this as we still have a few games hanging in the balance from the Sweet 16, but what has been your reaction to what we've seen in the NCAA tournament thus far? Because a lot of people, I feel like, were hoping and praying that it was not going to be a chalky tournament, and, well, unless we see some massive shockers Sunday night, we're getting a chalky tournament right now.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. One, I don't really mind it because now you're going to get some better games in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. You know, everybody always wants to talk about the upsets. They always want the Cinderellas, and I get that. I think we're due for maybe one or two of them here coming up soon. But there are a few reasons for that. I think seeding has vastly improved with the use of analytics. You know, you think back to that Siena team back in 2008, whenever that was. I think Siena is a great example of a team that won a game in a mismanaged seed game in that one. And you could probably go through more examples over the years. And now I think with more accurate seeding, plus the top of the sport separating itself, you're starting to see less Cinderella stories, which I understand fans want. But at the same time, Greg, you're starting to see the best teams emerge at the end of the season and at the end of the NCAA tournament. That's what you want. You want to crown the best team. You want to find who the best team is. Well, we're able to do that now better than ever before.
Yep, and it certainly has been a case where we have been getting some really good games here in the Sweet 16 Elite 8. A season ago, we had just an amazing last few rounds, and I think that we're in for that as well. And just because I know that you're a little bit of a fan of some of these mid-major teams, I am as well. What do you think this does for the landscape of mid-majors? Because we saw High Point show really well, win a game, and then they push Arkansas to the brink. I know that a lot of people are going to bring up the fact that Miami of Ohio lost to Tennessee, but they won a game in the NCAA tournament as well, and I still do think that there's a place for some of these mid-majors, but I do think that it's becoming a little bit more difficult for the, and I air quotes here, average mid-major.
Yeah, it is. And I think the other part of it, too, with the mid-majors is that there's just a lack of consistency for a lot of them because as soon as you have a good year, a lot of those players are going to go to high major schools. You know, we'll see Miami, Ohio, or what High Point is able to retain from this year's roster. Now, Miami's roster this year was built on a lot of retention, but I think going forward, that's going to be the issue for a lot of these mid-majors is as soon as they have a good year, well, they're going to lose a lot of that talent to the high major level. And so it becomes harder for the mid-majors to compete. It's already hard for them to compete. And I mean, you know, it's hard for the mid-majors to compete. And you talk about the blowouts. There were blowouts all over the tournament. Thursday and Friday were some of the largest blowouts in the history of the tournament. It wasn't just Miami. I think people sometimes get lost in the mid-majors got blown out narrative. Everybody was getting blown out. No 13 to 16 seed won a game. And I mean, with the way that you look at that, the way that these teams are seeded, again, it's seeding is very accurate now. But at the same time, the top of the sport is just so good, it becomes really hard for the teams to compete. And the other thing that I think has contributed to it, and I wish I had it in front of me, Greg, to attribute whoever posted this, but there was a great post that somebody put out a few days ago about why the top of the sport has separated itself, and it's because I think you think back to a few years ago when the plethora of three-point shots, it was not as crazy as you see it now. So sometimes you'd see these mid-major teams build their teams around being able to shoot really well. And then you'd get a high major team who just wanted to maybe bang in the post and defend really well, but they couldn't shoot. And then all of a sudden, what happens? They get into the NCAA tournament. The three-pointer becomes the great equalizer. The mid-major team hits a bunch of threes. They get hot for a day. And the high major team doesn't. Well, that high major team loses. Now what happens? high major teams are starting to shoot threes more consistently all across the board. I'm not saying they weren't before, but I'm saying all across the board, every team, even St. John's, we're recording this during the St. John's game. St. John's took more threes in that first half than they'd taken all season. So even a team under Rick Pitino, who's known to not be a great shooting team, even they know that they have to take some threes. And so the high majors are beating the mid majors at their own game of variance. And that's where it becomes hard for consistency for the mid majors to win in the tournament.
No question about it. It is getting more and more difficult for these mid-major teams, and I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them moving forward, because you're a guy that's out there very near to Miami of Ohio. I know that there was a lot of controversy as to whether or not they should have been in the NCAA tournament, and they proved that, in my opinion, that they belong because they were able to win a game in the NCAA tournament. But that said, how do you take a look at a situation like a Miami of Ohio, and how do you take a look at some of these teams that are going to be trying to build themselves up for 2026/27 and beyond?
Yeah, for Miami, Ohio, I think it starts with Travis Steele coming back next year. I would expect him to be back as the head coach at Miami next year. I think, there are definitely going to be jobs that he gets in the mix with, but, he's a Cincinnati guy through and through. And so when you have Travis in place and when you have the roster that they have right now, can you keep guys like Brant Byers, Ian Elmer, Evan Ipsara, who was out for most of the year with a torn ACL, Luke Skaljak. You could go down the list. They're only missing Peter Suter and Antoine Wolfolk to graduation. Almar Atlason could be back. Now, I'm sure some of those players will experience, some interest in the portal, but all across the board, it's what I said a minute ago. If you're a team like Miami, you don't want this to just be a one and done. Look at what Akron has done over the last 3 years, or really over the last half decade to decade plus, but specifically in the last 3 years, they've won 3 straight MAC tournaments. There is the ability to build that consistency at this level. It just depends on what you can do from a portal perspective of retention. And, for now with Miami, hopefully some of those guys stick around.
Yep, absolutely. That was one of the best stories in all of college basketball this season. Watching them win game after game was great, and I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens with them moving forward, because I know you did mention that there's going to be a lot of movement with some of these mid-majors, including a team like a Siena, who they were probably the best mid-major in terms of trying to give chase to one of these one seeds, and Jerry McNamara on Sunday actually gets hired on by Syracuse. And how do you take a look at that situation? Because for the ACC, I think that they've really suffered from some of their bad coaching hires. I thought that they got back more online last offseason. I feel like this one is a step in the right direction, very much so for Syracuse.
Yeah, it's funny. You look at Syracuse and what they've done recently, it kind of feels like the Virginia Tech of football, a team that used to be, now I know that's not apples to apples by any means, but a team that used to be pretty competitive when they were in the ACC together, and now, Syracuse basketball has fallen off, Virginia Tech football has fallen off. Syracuse basketball, to me, that was when college basketball was really the height of American culture, right? You had Carmelo Anthony, you had Jerry McNamara. You could go down the list of guys that competed at Syracuse, and it has dwindled to nothing in the last 7, 8, 9 years. It's completely fallen off the map. And so I think Jerry McNamara will be a fantastic hire. You saw what he did for Siena the other day, almost beat Duke. They played their starting lineup all but 10 seconds of the game, and they had to, because their starting lineup was what carried them to that point. They had to do it. He makes the coaching decision to get them there. I think this is a home run for Syracuse, and hopefully it gets Syracuse back on the map, because college basketball is better when Syracuse is good.
Yep, exactly. And I think that is going to be a lot of fun to take a look at, as Paul Fristchner, who does such great work over at the Rebound Rundown Podcast and so much more, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I know that, Paul, we've got ourselves some interesting teams already into the Sweet 16. We should be getting Arizona and Florida unless we've got some big giant upsets. But that said, when it comes to the teams that we know are going to be in the Sweet 16, how have you taken a look at these top 2 seed teams like Houston, along with Michigan and Duke? Because I do think that there were a few wobbles for Michigan towards the back half of the regular season, but they looked really solid here over the weekend. And then for Duke, I really feel like they figured it out in the second half against TCU.
Yeah, they did. And I definitely have more questions about Duke than maybe some of these other teams, even though they are the number one overall seed. But you look at Houston, a team that's now made 7 straight second weekends. It's just incredible what Houston has been able to do in that consistency under Kelvin Sampson. They get to the NCAA tournament, they blow you out in the first 2 games, and then they start competing in the second weekend of the tournament. They're going to be playing at home. They're going to be, not technically, literally in their own building, but they're going to be playing in Houston for the South Regional. So all the way around the board, I think we are stocked up for this second weekend. And I think Duke, they had some injury issues. Gongba comes back and plays yesterday. I think that was a positive sign for them, obviously, to get one of their best pieces back. See how he does moving forward. Iowa State looked awesome today, even without Joshua Jefferson. We'll see if he's available for the second weekend. But they dismantled Kentucky. And, Kentucky has a ton of issues of their own. But, you look at Arizona, you look at Texas, Greg. I mean, we could be on a collision course here for Texas and Arizona in the Elite Eight for a chance for either Arizona to get to their first Final Four in decades or for Sean Miller to get to his first Final Four of his career. I know Texas has to get past Purdue and Arizona still has to win 2 more games, but it feels like that's what could be setting up for that one in San Jose on Saturday. So we'll see what happens this week. But, I think there is a lot of intrigue, a lot of storylines. So many of these teams, Michigan, certainly, can they do it? There are so many things that you can look at here over the next 6 days.
Yep, I am right there with you, and I do think that it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with a team that's relatively close to your neck of the woods in Purdue, as they're taking on, as of right now, the lone double-figure seed, and I think that they are going to be the lone double-digit seed in Texas, and I actually think that things have set up well for Purdue. I know that the defense has been a little bit up and down, but how do you take a look at this Purdue team? Because I do think that there's a chance that they could be able to make a run, and they could be one of those non-1 seeds that makes the Final Four.
I think Purdue here lately, obviously they win the Big Ten title, so they've turned the corner. They looked miserable there toward the end of the regular season. They just couldn't figure things out. They weren't playing at the right level. The one question I do have is CJ Cox. How healthy is he going into next week? And I haven't heard an update on him. Just how healthy is CJ Cox for the Sweet 16? Because he's somebody that really makes that team go. He's a great piece for Purdue. I think Purdue, if I'm being honest with you, Greg, I think they're going to struggle against Texas. And I think if they get past Texas, they're really going to struggle with Arizona. I just think that's a tough couple of games for a Texas team that's playing well right now and has the matchups. You look at Vokatitis there in the post going against Oscar Clough. You have the guard play from Jordan Pope. Tremont Mark has been playing well. Dalen Swain's an NBA talent. Texas really has turned the corner. The question is, Purdue, for the preseason number 1 team, have they truly turned the corner, or will it catch up with them next weekend?
Yep, I think that is going to be interesting to look at, and I do think that we are going to be seeing just a lot of these teams in general trying to be able to rise up. The top seeds are going to just try to be keeping the pedal to the metal, and I think that's going to be interesting to see what we get out of Iowa State as well, because they got the job done against Kentucky on Sunday, wobbly in the first half, looked very strong in the second half. How do you take a look at the path for Iowa State? Because I think that they're one of those intriguing teams that it feels like they've been able to win a game or two in the NCAA tournament, but have yet to be able to bust through, and this looks like a great opportunity for them. But again, we don't know the status of Joshua Jefferson for next week or perhaps anything more moving forward.
Well, they look great today, and they look like a team that's built to be able to withstand an injury like Joshua Jefferson, which is crazy to say given he's one of the best players in the country. But still, they went and just absolutely dismantled Kentucky, and they did it with shooting. They did it with great defense. They did it by being what they've done all year. And oh, by the way, they did it without maybe their best player. So to me, I think with a little bit more preparation, going into next week, maybe they do slip up when they have to face a team on 4 days prep instead of 2 days prep without Joshua Jefferson. But at the same time, maybe he's able to play. So I don't know if I have Iowa State going to the Final Four. I think that might be a tall ask, but could they win one more game? Absolutely.
Yep, I think so as well. And just when you take a look at the bracket right now, and I recognize that we're doing this not knowing if the 2 1 seeds are going to be able to make the Sweet 16 or not in Florida and Arizona, but who are you liking right now to be able to perhaps cut down the nets? And who's right now looking the most dominant, in your opinion, out of all these teams?
I'm still going to stick with my pre-tournament pick is Arizona. I think Arizona and Houston are going to play in the title game, and I think Arizona's going to win it. I want, just for Kelvin Sampson, I think he's owed a title. I think it would be great for the story for him in Houston here in the South Regional to be able to go to the Final Four and then go up to Indy. I think it would be great for Kelvin if they got there, but I think it's going to be Arizona, Greg. I think they're just too good. I don't see the weaknesses in that team. They haven't dealt with injury issues. They're a complete roster. Give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, they have looked so good thus far this season, and I do think that it's going to be very intriguing to see what we get out of them moving forward. And Paul, I know you were doing such an amazing job looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. You're over there at the Rebound Rundown Podcast and so much more. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, just please subscribe to the Rebound Rundown. It's a daily show. Just talking about college hoops. It's about 10 or 15 minutes in the morning for your morning commute. So, the Rebound Rundown, all major podcast platforms, and you can find our interviews and stuff like that on YouTube.
And Paul, he's doing such an amazing job looking at this great game of college basketball, and every single time he joins me, such great insight. So big thanks to Paul for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Again, unfortunately, no college basketball games today, but we'll be back at it once again tomorrow. And just like in past off seasons, once the NCAA tournament finish up and on days where we don't have games, this podcast keeps going. It's every single day, all 365 days, 366 on leap years, as we got a lot of transfer portal to talk about. Coaching carousel is getting rocking and rolling as well. So appreciate you tuning in today, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.